Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Sunday the 28th of July, and today we'll start to think about putting this clutch together. But we've got one or two issues to think about. So let me get set up here, and we'll go into those. Okay, everyone. So we've got all the components for the clutch laid out here. So working from the back to the front, what the driving and the driven plates, obviously the pressure plate with the spring cups, we've got the cush drive rubbers, we've got Woodruff keys for the shaft, we've got 25 rollers for the clutch basket bearing. We've got the clutch basket itself, and we've got the components here for the clutch hub that the cush and the cush drive rubbers fit in. We've got the screws to put the clutch centre together, and then we've got the clutch spindle, the clutch hub itself, and the thrust washer. Right, and when we were last looking at this, we had most of the parts out there, but we didn't have a spider, so managed to source one of those. So we're ready to actually assemble the clutch, but there is one slight issue that I'm still trying to resolve. So we've got the clutch centre here, and on this sit the rollers and then the basket, and the rollers go in the centre here. But behind the main clutch basket, between this face and the clutch basket, there has to be a thrust bearing, if you like, a thin thrust bearing. And this is the one that I've purchased against the part number in the parts book, and that part number is exactly the same for the B25s and the A65s. So I purchased it. However, to me, it's just too big. It would work, but it slops around. Even when you take into consideration the rollers that are going to sit in the centre of it. If you look at the clutch basket and the reverse side of this against which it will mate and face, then there is an area machined in this which does fit. But as you can see, it doesn't matter that the thrust washer, is a slightly bigger diameter than the centre hole. The problem is when you put the clutch centre there, you can see a lot of that thrust washer face isn't used, and in fact it could be smaller. So I was thinking over this and wondering, obviously, if this is indeed the right part. So I have got another one on the way, which I'm hoping is going to be smaller, but same part number. The next thing I thought I'd check is, at the moment, obviously I've got the A70 in part, so we'll get the A70 clutch, which is here, and that has a clutch centre with a much bigger face on it, as you can see, and the thrust washer that I've got actually is the same diameter as the back face of that hub. And however, so you start to think then, well, is this the right hub? And I think it is, because firstly, I purchased a lot of the clutch components including this hub, from C&D Autos, the BSA specialist in Acox Green. I'm not sure if they're there now, but a few years ago. This clutch is common with the B25, and this is definitely a B25 hub, I think. And the other thing is that it's a different part number in the parts book to the A65 hub. So something somewhere is not quite right. However, while we're waiting for another one of these, hopefully a smaller one, to arrive, at least we can actually begin to put this together anyway, just for first fitment, because that will enable us then to put the clutch and the completed clutch and the crankshaft primary drive sprocket on, and start making sure those are in alignment as part of the first build, if you like, because at least this washer, you know, does sit on there, so it'll give us the correct spacing, if you like, for when we put the cush drive on there as well. So we're going to start building it up with these parts. We'll probably have to split it again before we do the final engine build, but that doesn't matter. That's not going to take much to do. So first things first is to build up the cush drive, because the cush drive, build up the cush drive first, because we need that as one unit with the rubbers in it. So that's these parts here with the screws. And then what we'll do is, we've got the hub, put the washer on, we put the basket on, we put the rollers in the centre, and then we put the cush drive on that. And then we've got the basics of the clutch, because after that then you can mount the clutch then into the motor as it is, and you can add the plates and the pressure plate and the springs, etc. afterwards. Right, so that's the plan. So first things first is building up the cush drive, and this is a pretty straightforward case of, there's the back, here's the spider. The spider isn't symmetrical, so that can only go one way on, and when you want to ensure that the splines are where the splines come to the face, which they don't do on the other side. That's the face that needs to be towards the back, so you get as much of the splines onto ultimately the hub there as you can. So this is the back. The spider goes into the centre. The can't remember what to call this. Let's just have a look at some of these proper names. In the parts book. So yeah, that's called the retaining plate inner. There's the spider, and this is termed as the centre, shock absorber centre, which goes over the top like so. And now what we've got to do is fit the 8 rubbers, and these are a press fit in, and these are going to take some doing, and it's recommended that you use soapy water to help put these in, not oil, but you certainly need some lubricant, I think. And obviously as well, what we can do is we can use, you know, a lever on this to lever this backwards and forwards, etc., to get them in. It doesn't look as though it's going to be too bad actually. But of course they are meant to be a very tight fit. So actually I might have to get this into the vise per se, so I can lever it. So what I'll do is I'll crack on with this, try and get all the rubbers in, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, there we are. all rubbers inserted in between the spider and the centre. It's not too bad a job with a bit of levering with screwdrivers. You can get most of them in. The last two are the most difficult ones, but what you can do, as I say, with a little bit of lubrication is they do compress pretty well. Is you can lever them in side to side with a screwdriver and gently tease them in, and they're all in nice and tight now. So then the front faceplate goes on like so. Line it up a little better, and then we've got the countersunk screws in that then screw in to the back plate, and then that's our clutch centre cush drive done. So let me just put the centre in, tighten those up, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, there we are. Screws in and firm, and pretty flush at the back, so that's correct. So next thing is, right, we've got our clutch hub, thrust washer, clutch basket goes on the top, and then before we fit this into the centre, and this is quite a tight fit on the splines, what we've got to do obviously is put the rollers into the centre, and it's 25, there they are. So I'll just now place those around the centre here. Just show you a bit more. Fit in that gap there. We're just going to make sure they're the right way around, so I usually use pliers to put them in properly, to centre everything up. The nice thing about the clutch being on the bench here, on its back, is that you don't need anything to hold these in. No grease or anything to hold them in place like you do when you're messing about with ball bearings, for instance, on steering heads. So anyway, you get the general idea, just making sure these rollers go in correctly and that we're all centered up. So let me finish that off and I'll bring you back again in a second. Okay, there we are. All 25 rollers in. Spins nicely. There's always going to be a little bit of up and down play, a little tiny bit, because it's not tight, but it's nice and firm, not sloppy. So let's just put a few drips of oil in there. There we go. A line of oil in there. Lubricate the rollers. And then we'll put the hub on. Now this is a bit of a tight fit. So what I'm going to do is get the mallet out, give it a few taps to get it on, get all the splines fully seated, and then I'll bring you back again. Okay, there we go. Clutch basically together. And you can see on the back side there that thrust washer isn't right. It's it slops about a bit, but it does give the spacing right. It will work, but obviously, as you can see there, if it goes over to completely to one side, there's a slight gap appearing at the bottom there. So for the mileage we're going to be going, it'll probably be okay, but we will rebuild this again once we see what comes next in the post and see if it's any different. But that does work quite well. So yeah, pleased with that. And if we do a couple of test fits of the plates, there we go. And there we are, they drop straight in. So that's nice. But to save a bit of weight, we won't put the plates and the pressure plate in just yet. But there we are, we'll leave it at that for now. Another short one. We'll try and keep these a little bit shorter actually. But that's the clutch basically built. But what we can do, just as a bit of a teaser before we line up the next video at some point, is just offer this as it is up to the shafter at the moment and see where it sits with respect to the taper and make sure it's not fouling at the back. So give me a second and I'll take the camera off the stand and we'll have a look at that. Right, okay, so we'll try and do this this one-handed. So there's the clutch basket. Obviously got the keyway for the Woodruff key, but we won't bother with that just yet. We're just doing a quick offer up. There we go. So she's roughly on the taper at the moment. Not fouling at the back at all, which is good. In fact, what we could do now, while we're here, is here's our crankshaft sprocket and starter sprocket, and that goes onto the shaft initially without any spacer or thrust washer, I think. Let's just check that in the manual. Sorry, in the parts book. Yeah, so in the parts book we've got a 31 there, I think is just a shim. Let's have a check on this side. There we go, they're just shims rather than thrust washers to ensure alignment. So initially we can just offer this on without anything. Like so. And then what we'll do in the next video is we'll take a flat steel rule and check that alignment, and we'll probably have to take the sprag clutch body, etc. off, but that's either, that just slides off. It's a bit of a pig to get back on again with the sprag rollers, but we've done it before. So anyhow, there we are, beginning to come together. Actually, while we're here, can't resist. What we've got to do as well when we're building all this up is obviously we've got to have the starter motor somewhere in position. Sorry about the odd camera angles. Right, just give me a sec. I'm just gonna need to push a bit here. There she goes. But anyway, you can see what's going to happen once you've got the chains in there. There's not going to be a lot of room left. All quite complicated, but it all fits. And we'll leave it there for now. And on the next video, that's when we'll start thinking about lineups and chains, etc. We have got one or two other challenges. So I've got a chain here which is the correct chain, but I think this is 8 pitches too long. But we'll find out once we do a test fit. The other chain that I've got is the correct cam chain, so that's for later. And with respect to the chain for the starter drive, I've got the correct type of chain on order, which we'll need to I nearly said cut to length, but we'll need to split and reattach the ends to length. But I've got the correct tools to be able to do that, so it's an endless chain without a link, and that's currently on the way at the moment, so that's a job for next weekend. Okay everyone, we'll leave it there for now. Made some more progress, so that's good. Yep, we'll have to take all this to pieces again in the end when we go with the final build anyway, so I'm not worried about the clutch thrust bearing. It's all part of the initial build to make sure everything lines up and then we've got all the parts, etc. And from that perspective, we've succeeded. So onwards we go. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you again soon. Cheers.